Hello everybody, it's Jason here and this is my Digging for Antigua video. I haven't done one for something like 4 months, and the gap between that last one and the previous one was 2 months, so in the last 6 months this is the second video I've done. I've been busy. Kirsty was away for before the last one, and this time I've taken a new job working at a company called Seagull Inflatables in Antigua because my photography business has kind of gone rather down, shall we say, due to the global situation since March last year. Anyway, so I haven't had really a lot of time to do videos, but I have continued to dig for Antigua and continue to do the garden. So today is a little update to show you what I've been doing, or rather to show you what's happened, or how the garden looks these days. I did have an inquiry from somebody the other day who sent me an email and asked me if I was still doing it, and I thought that kind of jogged me to maybe doing another video. So let's have a look and see in the garden. So I'm starting off round the back of the house, or towards the left hand side of the house should I say, really, rather than the back. This is the area that I think during the last video still was quite new. I spent most of the time working on the front up until about 6 months ago, and then I started expanding into pots in this area here. So this is what it looks like on Sunday the 21st of February 2021. So we're just going to have a quick little look. You see my two bananas there. They've been in, I'm not sure if they were in the last video. I think they weren't. So they're 3 or 4 months old. They started off as little suckers. We got from a friend of ours around about that big, not very big. And they've grown pretty tall, I think you'll agree, in the last 3 months or so. This area over here is my sort of potting area. I've actually started growing peppers. These are all, I think they're pretty much all peppers. Started growing peppers in pots, and it's been a very, very successful strategy. You don't need a lot of soil as long as you have to water them every day. You definitely have to water them every day. Certainly out here you do. And you can see there's various different varieties here. These ones are jalapenos, and these are some sweet peppers. You can see there's quite a lot of fruit, and the fruit are quite nice and healthy on these plants. These are some banana peppers, and there's some spicy ones, and I'm pretty pleased with them in the pots. As you will remember, if you've seen my videos before, on this fence at this side of the garden, I've been planting tomatoes, again in pots. They're training them up the fence. You can see there's quite a lot of fruit on them, one of my fruit trees there. Just give you an idea. They're spaced out, I don't know, every 3 or 4 feet, something like that. A couple of them are planted in the ground like those, but the rest of them are in pots. I've been working in the garden this afternoon, clearing the debris from in between these pots, so they look quite tidy. I left the fruit on so that you could see how much fruit I'm getting. This is the amount of fruit that's on these plants more or less every 1 or 2 days. So there'll be probably in the garden at the moment something like 3 pounds of tomatoes at least that I'm going to harvest in a second. This is one of my fruit trees. This must be, I don't know, 9 foot tall. It's grown a lot since the last video. This is, like I said, the raspberry, and these are the fruits. They're not quite ready for harvesting yet. They're very, very bitter, apparently. I haven't actually tasted them yet, but these are used to make a drink or dessert, like a jam, chutney, that kind of thing. And then we come back, and then here are the other tomatoes. You see lots of fruit on these, again all in pots. And then as we go further up here, there's a couple of, what are they called, eggplants, or aubergines, eggplants. They're doing really well. I don't know if you can see some fruit in there. There's a couple of eggplants in there. Yeah. And then as we go up here, that's an okra, which is more or less nearly finished, but there's still some growth on there. And then at the top of the garden, some more tomatoes. And then I started another little sweet potato patch, which is not very big, but that's just a single plant, but it's going pretty well. Quick little shot of what's going on the wall in between the garden and the garage. There's various different things here, some sweet potatoes on the left, then some tomatoes, then various herbs. This here is mint marigold, which has like an aniseedy flavour. Little yellow flowers, and the leaves taste like aniseed. They're quite cool actually. I use that in salads. And then on the other ledge there's various different varieties of basil. I think you've probably seen these before in the last video. This is regular basil here. This one I think is the aniseedy kind of basil. Not really sure what it's called. It came in one of those Chinese seed kits that I got right at the beginning of the project in sort of March, April last year. And this is like a lemon one, and then this is a purple basil. So they're doing really, really well in pots. And I've got a few little seedlings in the seed trays. And then this other stuff here, you can see it's lots of little pots. These are passion fruits grown from seed. Just going to show you all the fruit trees that are kind of the first thing that were planted on this side of the garden. This is the raspberry that you saw a second ago. This one is the soursop, it's doing very well. And then we have the custard apple. And then we have the other one, which is kind of the same thing, down here, not doing quite as well. I thought I'd show a little bit more detail of the bananas because they're quite an interesting plant actually. Most of the bananas grown worldwide are clones, all clones, of a single plant that was produced in Kew Gardens in London, the Cavendish Bananas. So I think these are Cavendish Bananas. And that's most of what the commercial crop for bananas is all around the world. All clones, vegetative reproduction. You essentially take, I don't know if you'd call it a cutting, but if you see the plant, it's not actually a tree. It's a gigantic herb with a false trunk. The trunk isn't really a trunk at all, it's just the stems from all the leaves all fused together. And then the plant produces these suckers which spring up from a rhizome under the ground. So kind of the body of the plant really is under the ground, the stem I guess, or the rhizome. And then these things spring up from that rhizome. To take a cutting, what you do is you take a spade and you slide it in between the baby and the parent, and you slice down and you take a chunk of the rhizome with the cutting. Now this is probably a little bit too small, it's just over a foot in height. The one on the other side is probably a better size to take as a cutting. It's maybe 3 foot, maybe slightly more than that. That's a decent size to take as a cutting. So you just take a spade and then slice the bit of the stuff that's under the ground with that, and then you just plant it. Really just plant it in the ground. These ones I actually had in pots for a few weeks just to get established, but a lot of the local people tell me you don't need to do that, you just plant it in the ground, and it grows like weeds essentially. And as you can see, that's got 2 suckers on it. The other one, which is even taller, I don't know how tall that is, 10 foot, something like that at the moment, that's got 3 of these little cuttings. In this climate, which is perfect for them, very, very easy to grow. A little bit of footage from the balcony looking down on the front strip of the garden, which was the first part of the garden that I planted all those months ago, just about 11 months ago now. So 11 months ago this was just a strip of grass, if you remember the very first video, or you can go back and have a look at it. So here we've got the spinach, which is starting to flower, but it's still growing strong. And then in here is predominantly, I'm taking a lot of peppers out of this garden, and then if I zoom in a little bit you might be able to see there's some little lettuce seedlings down there. And down here there's some, oh, where is it? There. I think these ones are kale and various other things. We come back, there's a little bit of traffic on the road at the moment because it's 5:10 and everybody has to be back by 6 o'clock because we now have a curfew from 6 o'clock. And so the shops are mostly shutting at 5 o'clock and everybody's racing home. So this road is really quiet most of the time, but just between 5 and 6 at the moment it's crazy busy. Anyway, so this view on the other edge of the grow zone probably doesn't look that different from the last video. I've got a few little seedlings in trays just on my cuttings table. They are mainly squash of various varieties, so I think there's some butternut squash, and on the right hand side I think they are cantaloupes and watermelons and a few herbs and stuff. And then look down, other my tortoises in there, and then there's some other pea. I think this is mint, this is avocados grown from seed, and this is not spring onions, what do you call it, chives. And then there's some more herbs in there. And then you can see these pumpkins littering this area of the garden. These have all grown out from that other corner where I originally planted them in the pumpkin patch. There are no more pumpkins left in the pumpkin patch. They've essentially walked out over the period of the last, 9-10 months, whatever it is. So they've grown over and they root as they go along. So these little patches now, you see the little green patches, they're all separately rooted into the ground. And you can see we've got quite a few pumpkins, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I don't know, maybe up to 10 pumpkins in this area. And then that shrub or bush you see there, that's the pumpkin, not pumpkin, it's the pigeon pea. So that's the pigeon pea, and we'll go and have a closer look at that because it's kind of interesting. So on the way to the pigeon pea, this is, I just want to show you this one, this is a pomegranate, which is, I don't know if you can really see here, it's maybe about 1.5 foot tall. That was planted when Kirsty was in quarantine, a couple of months ago? No, probably 4 months ago now. And then I planted out some aloe. There's a few little patches of aloe. Again, that really you don't have to look after that. This climate is perfect for these kinds of succulents. And then there is the pumpkins. Just have a little close-up of the pumpkin. Yeah. And then this is the pigeon pea. So it's just flowered for the second time, and it's just producing its second crop of peas. We had some for dinner last night. They're absolutely delicious. We got a load last time, I don't know, a whole load of them, and we froze them. Just froze them raw. So they're really, really good. And they just grow. I think it's a perennial, and I don't know how many crops I'll get from it, but I'll just keep it going as long as I can. So this is the second crop. You can see there are quite a lot of peas on it. So this is the right hand side of the garden to the right of the front garden, and just next to the pigeon pea this is the white guava. I lost my little Suriname cherry, which was just in there. It was only tiny, it never really got going. This one is golden apple, which is one of my favourite fruits out here. There's no sign of it fruiting. It's only about, I don't know, 4.5 foot tall at the moment. And then I planted some citrus. This one is a lime, and then there's an orange, and then another lime right over there. This is the inside of the pumpkin patch inside of the grows. I'm not going to dwell on this area because it's appeared in the videos quite often, so if you've looked at my videos you don't really need to see this. Just want to show you this is all sweet potatoes. The pumpkins are entirely absent now from this part of the garden. Facing down the other way, towards the other side, towards the left hand side of the front of the house. So there's some herbs here. These are different varieties of basil, and then various different herbs here. I don't know if you can see if I go a little bit closer. So there's a mixture of seedlings and established plants. These ones are some coriander and some dill. I actually really like coriander and dill. There's some slightly bigger coriander and dill. These are at different stages. There's various other things, sorrel and parsley, and what's this, thyme, and that is oregano, more dill, rosemary, and more basil. In no particular order, there's some arugula seedlings which have been in a few weeks. Then there's some carrots, some local celery, some tomatoes, which have been in for a long time, these tomatoes, almost since the beginning of the garden. Then you look down the other side and there are some lettuces. Again, I planted these in as seeds straight in the ground. Previously I've been planting out and growing them into seedlings in pots and then pricking them out and then putting them in the garden. But this is far more successful, just to plant the seeds directly in the garden. Especially here where it's very sunny, it's nice and humid, and it's perfect growing conditions. Got some more kale down there. So again, seedlings just planted straight in the ground. Just turning around a little bit, I've planted some beans up against this trellis where the cucumbers were, if you saw those videos, and then there's a couple of peas. They were grown as seeds in pots and then planted out, and then some spicy peppers, and they've been in, I don't know, a couple of months, and then some other more established peppers that have been in since the beginning. Some red jalapenos, some banana peppers, some green peppers, sweet ones. These banana peppers go orange eventually. And then swinging around, there's some frigatellos, and again you've seen these before in the videos. And then in this bottom area here, got some more celery, a few lettuces, and some broccoli. Again, you can see I planted them at quite a high seed density so I was having trouble getting some of these seeds to germinate in pots. So I just put loads out in the ground, and they've done really well. They're in amongst some lettuces and other things, and then these peppers. So all in all, it's going pretty well. I've got a few squash there, and then this side I've got a few other bits and pieces. I planted some seeds here. They were beets. A couple of them have taken, but the rest not so good. I don't know whether that's the ground. This it's a lot of clay in the soil generally in this area, which you'll have heard me talk about before. But in this particular little corner of the garden, it's very heavy clay, hardly any loam at all. So some things maybe just don't do as well as others. I'm going to try and do a video again well, fairly soon. Not going to be doing them on a weekly basis anymore, but I'm going to try and do it before the next 4 months. Just keep you updated with what we're up to. And happy gardening, and hope to see you all later. Bye for now.